Welcome to Season 2 of The Shift, Stories of Resistance and Resilience, a multi-platform conversation series produced and hosted by me, Travis Rivera, the professional storyteller. I believe that stories have the power to change the world. Through honest conversations and powerful storytelling, we explore how people challenge systems, shift narratives, and transform culture, creating a more inclusive, just, and liberated world in our lives and in our work. Here on this podcast, you'll hear from changemakers, truth tellers, and community builders who are using their voices and their stories to move us forward. So if you believe in the power of storytelling to spark change, you're in the right place. Listen closely, take notes, recognize our shared humanity. This is The Shift. Hey y'all, Travis Rivera here. Welcome back to The Shift. I know you missed us. We took a short break and we're back with new episodes in June. Today we're doing something a little bit different on The Shift. We have our guest in person because Daniel Davis Edwards lives in Atlanta like I do. And so we're able to do this in person. So we're testing this out, see how this feels. Not that everyone who lives in Atlanta who's going to be on the podcast could be at my house, I'm selective. But I'm excited to be doing this conversation today on The Shift, Stories of Resistance and Resilience. And today's a really special episode because we're going to talk about a little bit about work. We're also going to talk about our friendship, which I'm really, really excited about to dive into. Because I think that it's important that we have more nuanced conversations about what friendship looks like in practice and not the glorified social media posting friendships that people often try to emulate, but what it looks like in day-to-day life. Today's guest, who is Daniel, is also someone I'm really meshed with in my life. I don't think we planned that. It just kind of naturally happened. But we'll be talking about that as well as his work as a photographer and all the other things. So before we get started, let me read his official bio. And this is my first time doing it with the guest right next to me. So it's a little awkward for me, a little nervous, but we got this. Daniel Davis Edwards is an educator, facilitator, and speaker dedicated to helping individuals think more critically about themselves and the world around them. As the founder of SoLit Education, a branch of Clear Pathworks, Daniel designs and leads interactive workshops that encourage reflection, curiosity, and personal growth. Daniel holds a Bachelor of Arts in Sociology from Morehouse College and brings over 15 years of experience as a facilitator and educator, working with students, community groups, and organizations. His workshops are rooted in sociological theory and real-world application, creating space for participants to explore how identity, culture, and social systems shape how we move through the world. Through SoLit, Daniel leads conversations on topics such as identity and self-concept, race and ethnicity, gender and sexuality, and relationship orientation, healing, unlearning, and embodiment. Facilitation style blends open dialogue, storytelling, reflection, exercises, and accessible theory, making complex ideas engaging and practical. Through SoLit Education, Daniel's goal is simple: to help people know better, so they can do better in their relationships, communities, and the choices they make every day. And in addition to being the SoLit arm of his business, Clear Pathworks, he also does photography, which is also obviously a big part of the work that we'll be talking about today. And he also does movement and yoga work through Unbound. So how you doing, Daniel?
I'm good.
Good, welcome.
Thanks.
So we're not going to be looking at the camera, which is also different from me. We're looking at each other.
Yeah.
Hopefully these are our good sides. But tell me a little bit about who you are outside of the professional highlights I read in your bio.
Outside of working?
Yeah. So outside of the work stuff.
I am a bona fide nerd. So avid reader. I'm always playing a video game. I'm always engaging in story in some way. I also like to just be out in nature. That's always really, really important to me to kind of like ground and reset. It can be a difficult question to answer, a little bit because a lot of my work encapsulated or encapsulates who I am and how I like to show up in the world just in general. I just happen to do things that I enjoy and can like get paid for at the same time. So that list of who I am outside of showing up in the world.
You're a son, like my professional space. You're a sibling, you're a best friend, you're a partner, a life partner.
Yeah.
You're all these other things too outside the work we do.
Yeah. So I'm trying to think about it in ways that who I am outside of what I do. Right. That doesn't really answer your question with just more things of what I do. Yeah. So, that's important to like really synthesize and create a difference between the two. Yeah. So who I am is a lifelong learner, educator. And I try and show up in those ways in my relationships too. Yeah.
And it's so interesting too, because one of the reasons why you're here is because you're one of the speakers I represent. So if you're looking to book Daniel for speaking engagement, for Pride, for any occasion, reach out to speaker agent at marktravisrivera.com for more booking information about how to book Daniel. So that's part of the reason why he's here. But then the other part of it is, I really want to have a conversation with you because you're one of the most brilliant people I know. And so often, because you're more introverted, I feel like your brilliance is not always shared publicly. And I was like, let's shake it up. Let's have a conversation we would have in private in front of the camera. And so this is why you're here today. But I asked every guest this. I'm really, really excited to hear your response to this, which is, what is your personal concept or definition of resilience and resistance?
My personal concept of resilience and resistance is seeing what is, in your world personally and externally, and seeing and really breaking down the ways that we've adopted how we live personally and in large that aligns with things that we don't necessarily want it to align to. Right? How much of how we live has been indoctrinated? How much of how we live is socialized into us? Right? Like how much do we interrogate, what we live and what we think, and then in turn what we do, right? Because we act off of the information that we have. Yeah. And if it's information that we just adopted and that was just given to us, and we just kind of weave it into our lives over time without investigating it, we find ourselves doing things or agreeing to things that we otherwise wouldn't. We break down its source, right? Yeah. Which goes back to why I'm such an avid reader. Yeah. It has helped me unlearn, which then helps the people that I want to help like unlearn things to make ourselves a little bit better at our lives.
And I think right now when reading is so under attack, when they're trying to ban books, I feel like that's what I would admire about you. Is sometimes we'll read the same book and we'll talk about it. Like we recently just read All About Love by Bell Hooks. I think our next book. Did we decide on our next book yet?
We haven't yet. We did All About Love, and we did. We
read separately, but around the same time. Never Can Say Goodbye.
Yeah, Never Can Say Goodbye.
The Art of Peaceful End, The Life of Death, Doula by Darnell Lamont Walker, who has become one of my favorite storytellers of 2026. He was he the first guest of season 2?
I think so.
Yeah, he was my premier guest on the podcast. So check out his episode. But we actually recently hung out with Darnell at my birthday party, and that was a key. But tell me more about how you're remaining resilient right now as a Black queer man in America, navigating what we're all navigating.
Lots of meditation.
Did I tell you he does yoga? Yeah. Check out his Unbound movement. Is his yoga arm, his movement arm of Clear Pathworks.
And even more than that movement, I am not myself if I'm not moving in some way. And it's not to move in order to run away or to like escape or distract myself, but as a movement as a form of recharge. Yeah. Movement as a form of joy, right? Moving and doing things that literally and fully bring me joy. Yeah. Is the number one way that I can daily, enact resistance and resilience. Yeah. And not simply doing things that just keep me from feeling bad. I recently had an aha moment, like an epiphany around that I found myself just doing things that were just keeping me at equilibrium, or like just maintaining kind of my emotional status quo, but nothing that was actually bringing me joy. And so when I made that distinction, my daily life has now shifted and changed. Like I'm back into things that I have put on the back burner. I've stopped doing things that I was like, oh, this is just something to like mark off or give me that sense of achievement in my day, but wasn't actually like for progressing me in my life in any way.
Yeah. And that's the constant push and pull between me and Daniel, is that I'm someone who, I schedule yoga with him. He's also my yoga teacher. I think I said that. And there have been days when he'll come to my house and I'm just a mess. Like Daniel has seen every version of me, I think. I don't think there's a version of me he hasn't seen yet. Yeah, I can't think of a version he hasn't seen of me. But that also means that when we're in work together in the yoga space or in the movement space, I can literally see my mood shift after, like where I came in during the session, where I ended it. Oftentimes is totally different. And that's why I made my movement practice with him a part of my company's like budget for me, like as part of my compensation package, because I saw a shift in how I was managing the business and myself when I wasn't moving.
Mm-hmm.
And my goal is to get more time with you, like, to increase that capacity, that package. And it does make a difference. And I think, and that's why I wonder, like, does it make a difference because it was you only, or is it like, would it be a different feeling if I was working with someone who I didn't know as well? Who was I? Because we could have so many conversations on the mat that I probably wouldn't have with just a regular yoga movement teacher. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's an advantage of like working in that way with you. But also as a disabled person, you've been really great at helping me navigate my disability. And also I think it's been a learning opportunity for you about how to work with a disabled body and how to be, especially a disabled body that's not perceived to be disabled.
Right.
Yeah.
And I have found that movement wise, what any adaptations or shifts that I can come up to make something more accessible for you is something that benefits all of my clientele.
Yeah.
And so like there's an advantage to that. In addition to always, again, being a lifelong learner, like I'm always seeking to like improve and be better around all of the things that I do.
Yeah.
And so I think to answer your question, it's yes and no, right? Like part of it is because of our rapport.
Yeah.
And then a big part infusing that with, I believe in just being good at what I do.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to show up in that. Like with anyone else, as long as if they're good at what they do, you're going to end up getting to like, the connection, the personal connection, and like talking, being able to engage in a more personal way over time. Yeah. We just came in with that, and it just made the other work. It makes the other things that we share easier, to do.
Yeah, because actually, now that you say that, I just remembered I was living in this apartment when I first subletted in this building. Mm-hmm. So in 2022, and Raven had recommended I reach out to you because he was moving out of Atlanta. Mm-hmm. And he was my yoga teacher initially when I moved here. And then you and I had known each other online for almost a decade, I think, maybe about a decade, but really didn't interact as much in a direct way. And then we start doing yoga together or movement together. And I don't know how the friendship happened. Like, sometimes I think about that, I'm like, how did we become friends? It just kind of organically happened. Mm-hmm. And then one second it's like there was a client work relationship, and then it morphed into a personal and professional relationship, and then it just naturally evolved to what it's become now. And it's very rare for me, as someone who grew up without a father, as someone who's never lived in a city with so many primarily queer men of color, to have to navigate that tension between building a healthy relationship with a man where there's intimacy that necessarily isn't correlated to sex, right? And it's this honest intimacy, platonic in nature, and very genuine.
And I think that's the conversation that we had.
Yeah.
We actually named it. We named having a platonic, connection and an energy, but like an actual friendship. Like we actually named that as a thing, as a trajectory. And then once we started engaging outside of like work stuff, or at least outside of like works of movement work, in like I still am like your handyman. So like
they're the handyman. Yes.
So it was.
I let someone else do the mixed style, and they did a jacked it up. And he gives me all the side eye, and here I was thought I was being conscientious, not asking him to help me so much. But that's it. Anyways.
It was a mix of things.
Yeah.
Right. Like it was a mix of me coming into the space for stuff outside of like just like movement work or photography or anything like that. Yeah. Helping you build your home. And helping you establish like your space here.
Yeah.
Like as a real contributing factor to that was something else that just added to the pot of us becoming friends.
Yeah, I agree with that. I also think, there are very few people I can co-facilitate with. I can count on one hand the number of people I can co-facilitate with. because I'm a Beyonce when it comes to facilitation and speaking. Like, I don't necessarily need a Kelly or a Michelle. I can do it myself. But Daniel and I did a couple workshops in Atlanta for Women of Color through Where the Soul Grows, which was created by Joshua Michael Cruz. And it was the first time. And I remember do you remember the workshop that's the particular session I'm talking about with the mirror? I remember sitting there and holding space for it was 30, I think it was 30 queer men of color, all come from different backgrounds and experiences and situations. And I remember getting delirious at one point because I was so drained at the end of that session. And I just remember at one point, you helped me hold the mirror up and you came right beside me. And it was in that lifting up of you being there and the way we co-facilitated that space with you doing meditation and support throughout the workshop. I was like, oh wow, he and I can also co-facilitate together. And that's a very beautiful thing because it's that space that we had created together as a container was so sacred and so beautiful. And to this day, it's still one of my favorite co-facilitation. And second to that is Savannah, who is a white woman from Kentucky who I co-facilitated leadership with a rural cohort in Pennsylvania and a BIPOC cohort. We brought them all together. So there are only a few people in my life who I can co-facilitate with, and you're one of them. And I think it's because there's a level of vulnerability and safety I have with you to do that kind of work. You can't just do that with anybody because that can be very dangerous. Yeah, you can't also just let anyone put up your tiles on your wall, okay? Apparently. That's what I've learned. But let's switch over a little bit because I want to talk a little bit about your photography. So we're talking a little bit about your speaking, your facilitation, but I want to go into your photography because he's also my official, I guess, photographer. He does all my brand shoots. He'll do the photo shoot for my new book. Well, not this particular book, a little bit of illustration, most likely revisions. But if we do a photo shoot for my memoir, it'll be his fortune that happens. But I want to touch base a little bit on your photography a little bit, and because I love it, and I always take compliments on my headshots and stuff. But I'm going to pull up my phone so I can pull up the question I've written down because I want to make sure that I don't get it wrong. And I didn't know this about you initially until I was doing research for this conversation, so I'm actually really excited. It's not something that you've ever. The project itself has come up. But I don't think we ever talked about the genesis, like what really inspired it. So I'm going to go into this preamble and I'm going to jump into the question. You are a multi-hyphenate artist and one of the most kindest, most brilliant, most creative people I know. And over the last 5 years, I haven't gotten to experience your work up close. Oh, I have gotten to experience your work up close. I meant to write. But I was preparing for this interview, which I shared with you earlier. I had done some research on your Black Police Officer project. And in the article where you talk about Black Outline Blue, which is the name of the series, I'm assuming, you say this. I believe I could have a fuck the police mentality without putting my two law enforcing parents into that category. I rationalized that belief because my parents are good people, making them good cops. However, that was not a conclusion I can come to for every cop. When the deaths of unarmed Black civilians became more public, I started to question how any Black person could put on a uniform that starts to represent danger for anyone with their skin tone. How does one deal with the duality of the two identities, you ask? What perspective does a Black police officer have when it comes to their duty, their Black life, and the lives around them? At a time when our country feels, this is the end quote, that was the last part of his quote, I asked this question. At a time when our country feels divided, settled into us versus them mentality, what did doing this project illuminate for you as a photographer, as a Black queer man, in the South especially, and how did the general public react to Black Outline Blue?
So to answer the first part of your question, what it illuminated for me what it illuminated and affirmed for me is this long-standing philosophy of both and, right? It's something that is a concept in my practice of IFA, right? And it is something that reigns true for me, even in the smallest ways, right? And so with Black Outline Blue, what that project, what that project did for me was hold up what I mentioned in that quote around duality, right? And what it means to occupy seemingly two opposing worlds at the same time, which is something that Black and brown people do very well, people of color do, and queer folks do very well, is occupy these what seemingly are like opposing spaces. What helped me reconcile, I think, and it still continues to help me reconcile, like a really, really very real sense of cynicism and in some cases anger around police officers in general, is thinking about the people in the uniform, while at the same time, I still rail against the institution itself. Right. The formulation of the system itself, its impetus, like what it was built to do, right?
What is done, the harm is done to Black communities,
the harm,
especially.
the impact versus the intent, right? And so, like, it's been about balancing, holding and knowing what people's intent have been and putting on that uniform, good, bad, and indifferent, with its impact, which has also been good, bad, and indifferent.
Well, you know, and I think, and this is what I think for me, I think a lot of my friends sometimes, I have some friends who are more far left than I am, who are abolitionists, and, you know, I don't prescribe to that. And sometimes when you say that in a queer leftist space, you kind of get the side eye. And I said, well, because I think it needs to be reformed, but I know for a fact there are people in my lives who are cops. There are people in my lives who do this from a space of want to be of service, to protect people, to help people. And I said, I would be remiss if I painted every single officer with one broad stroke. Now I can do that to the system in which they are operating in, the system that has trained them and conditioned them and has allowed. I said this recently to an Uber driver I was driving. I do a lot of ride shares, I don't drive. And so I was talking to this Uber driver who's originally from New York. He used to be a former cop. Now he does culinary stuff and Uber stuff and all that. And I had said to him, I was like, I said, we need to reform policing because it's too easy for bad people to become police.
And so I think you bringing that word of reform, I think you and I both align with that left abolitionist purview more than you think, right? Because in order to reform, right, this particular institution into the ways that it aligns with what the impact of what some of these officers want to have, which actually is protect and serve and be for the people, means for the institution to have to be eliminated altogether, because the impetus for it was not that, you know, to begin with.
But I think, but that's what I often tell people when I push back on some of my friends who are abolitionists. So, you know, we need to destroy the system. We need to invest in community policing and all these things. I said, okay, but what does that look like in practice? Right? Give me a plan, not a concept of a plan, right? But actually show me, tell me, because you can't just break down something and we align with that, right? And then try to replace it with community coalition or like some kind of like community accountability. Like there are real things that happen in real time that just that mechanism won't work for every single situation.
And to bring it back to what I was talking about with both and, right?
The nuance, that's what I was getting at.
So bringing it back to that, this philosophical concept of both and is that there are going to be people who are going to have to implement the destruction part of it. And there are people that are going to have to implement the reconstruction or construction part of it. Like, I think it's going to be rare that you're going to end up finding an individual or individuals that are going to embody both and be able to embody both at the same time.
Because that is a level of fragmentation that it takes. Like, you have to be able to fragment.
And both are needed. Both are needed for actual substantial change. For something new to be created in its place, right? The thing that it's replacing needs to be destroyed, right? It needs to be deconstructed.
And where can people find, is this portrait series Black Outline Blue, is that available anywhere?
So online, you can find the work all in like different articles. So it's published in New York Times twice. The Bitter Southerner, I think, is the best article that's been written on it. To be honest, like more comprehensive.
Can you send me that link? I'll add it to the show notes.
And then it's also up in the permanent collection at Atlanta Legal Aid.
Nice.
Here. So
and the article that I saw where I quoted you from, had I think 4 or 5 people
Mm-hmm.
So is that the full series?
No, The Bitter Southerner has I think the fullest version of the series.
Okay, how many people have you photographed?
I've photographed, I think 15. I think it was 15 officers, APD officers.
How long ago was this? I think
this is my thesis project for my master's in fine art program at SCAD. Yeah.
So the master's in fine arts and photography. Y'all.
So this is back. I got my MFA in 2019.
Yeah. Have you ever thought about, because a lot has changed, right, since 2019, right? We had George Floyd murder, we had, the uprising, the pandemic, what's currently happening with police, and that's continued to happen throughout pre-George Floyd, post-George Floyd. Have you ever thought about doing a retrospective of like where they are now, or like what has shifted for them?
I have not thought about that. I've actually more thought about what it looks like to move forward within the project.
Yeah. Oh, so doing more portraits.
Either doing more portraits or shifting to still again following that both and philosophy. What does the opposing, I guess, version of this project look like? If Black police officers are on one side of the coin, what does the other side of that coin look like? And I don't mean that as like photographing white officers. That's not what I mean. Like, I mean,
to be clear,
I'm talking about the other side of the coin as far as like systemic structure. Right. What are the forces that operate in a constructive and in some cases destructive space outside of the system that are also Black, right? What's the other side of that scale look like?
I also love to, you have this newer project that you're developing called Pops. Can you talk a little bit about that as well? Because I know we're doing some work on that later.
Yeah, so Pops, an ode to Black fatherhood is what this project is, what it is. It's my current special project, ongoing. It doesn't have an end date, right? With the
tell them what the project is, because we don't necessarily.
The project is about Black fatherhood. And it is dedication to my father. So over the last few years, the relationship with my father and I has been more than what I ever thought it was going to be.
I was like, can I get to this episode without crying? And of course I can't, because it wouldn't be a Bar Travis Rivera conversation without me crying. Sorry, go ahead.
And I love my dad.
Yeah.
That's really what it comes down to. I love my dad. And so I wanted to do something to represent like the love that I have for him and the relationship and like ever growing, evolving a relationship that we have. Much later in life. So,
and I also love too is like it's not just straight cis Black men fatherhood.
When I say Black fatherhood, I mean spectrum. I mean the depth and breadth of what Black fatherhood looks like. Which in and of itself is tremendously diverse.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And that's what makes me really excited about this project, is being able to photograph all of the different ways that Black fatherhood shows up.
I love that.
Whether
I saw some of the pics already. It's very beautiful.
And I'm talking about fatherhood, whether it's blood related or not. I'm talking about coaches. I'm talking about mentors. Like that's what I'm talking about.
The
vastness of fatherhood. And the only criteria is you just are Black. You identify as,
you identify as a fatherly figure.
Yeah, a Black father, right? That's it.
Yeah.
And so that's going to look many different ways. And I think there are ways that it's going to look that I'm not even prepared to even see. And so I'm really excited to
and I especially love this project because I think there's always been this misconception in the media and the false narrative stereotypes about Black fathers being absent.
Yeah, which is
that's not true.
Untrue.
It's so fucking untrue.
Yeah.
And it goes back to the days of the 80s and 90s when Black men were disproportionately being incarcerated, right? And that there was an intentional effort to destroy the Black family.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think that stereotype for some reason still lingers.
Yeah, no, that is.
And I don't get that. Like, I don't get why in the good Lord 2026 that stereotype persists for some people.
Because white supremacist ideology still exists.
Yeah.
And it is the act of the destruction of Black families, right, is a white supremacist action.
Oh yeah.
And upholding the stereotypes of absence of Black parenthood, Black fathers is a white supremacist, part of white supremacist ideology.
Yeah.
Right, it's a part of the playbook.
Yeah.
If it had a page number, I would be able to find it for you. You know what I'm saying? So
when we read part of 2025, we might actually find a page number right now.
Yeah, so it's in there somewhere. Yeah, Project 2025.
It's not, they don't explicitly name what they're trying to do, right? But we see even now in the context of Latinidad, with these ICE separating families, separating children and parents from each other in detention centers, right? Because they know that we as people of color, especially Black and brown folks, collectively are very powerful. And which is why I often speak out against anti-Blackness in the Latinx community, because I know that the only way we're going to turn this shit around is together. That there needs to be a collective effort between all minority groups, but especially Black and brown people, to combat this whiplash, this white lash that we're enduring right now. And that's why, for me too, is like, this person should not be named. Ever since I moved to the South, I've had this weird race conflict, like an identity conflict that I've never had in my life, right? Where people say to me, "Oh, you're white," and and it only has ever happened since moving here. Now, am I white presenting? Am I light skinned? Yes, I get that. But to say that I'm a white person, right, inherently ignores all the ways in which my culture lives and embodiment through me. And I remember we went to Puerto Rico recently for my birthday. This is not on this. We didn't talk about this. This is where the conversation is going. And I just remember it was the first experience we had with the rice shoes, right? And at first, I couldn't understand what was going on because of the language barrier at first. And then I got that feeling, that ick. I was like, "Oh, he's being anti-Black." And I remember it pissed me off so much because, one, we had just got to the islands, and I'm the only one that speaks more Spanish than not, and I'm the only one that understands it fluently. And so I couldn't tell if you all were sensing or picking up on his cues verbally on what he was saying. And I wanted to curse him out in Spanish. I wanted to say to him all the reasons why he was wrong for the way he was acting in that moment. But I didn't have enough grasp of the language. And if I said it in English, it wouldn't land the same. Like, he won't understand me. And I just remember sitting there in the discomfort of that tension for me, like wanting to speak out against him, and not having the language for it in Spanish, right? And I speak out against anti-Blackness, especially in that community, because it's so fucking problematic. But also, my sister, right? She's a Black Latina, right? When she comes to Mid-Atlanta, people don't know what the fuck she is. She's like an oddity for them here. But I saw it. I saw how certain relatives would treat her differently. I saw how we call her Moja, which was short for Mojanita, which was meant to be a term of endearment, but it really roughly translated to little Black girl. Right? I saw how people struggled with her hair while she was growing up, and all these things, and my sister's own journey of identity, right? Reconciling, now that she knows her full biological makeup, reconciling what that means for her, right? And it's just been so weird for me navigating this whole, like, I'm white in the South, and I'm not white when I go back to New Jersey or New York or other parts of the country, and trying to navigate what that looks like. But I think to your point around white supremacy, it's going to take all of us.
Yeah.
Like, it's going to take these uncomfortable moments in conversations, right? Have there been moments in my life where anti-Blackness has manifested out? Yes, right? Because to your point, when you don't know better, you can't do better, right? And it was through those lessons and learnings of how I had to unravel and internalize and interrogate, my own internalized anti-Blackness. Because when it's all around you, you don't always realize it.
Yeah, you can't smell the cake in the kitchen, right, while you're baking. If you stay in the kitchen long enough, you stop smelling cake.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was when I was starting to read, when I reading stuff in high school and going to college and reading more of James Baldwin and Audre Lorde and and even Judith Butler around gender as performance and all these other things, it really started to help illuminate for me where the gaps were and where there needs to be more coalition. Right? And then Latinos fucked around and found out and voted for this man disproportionately, right? And then I saw the flip side of that. I saw people, mostly Black folks online saying, that's what they get. They don't like us anyways, right? And it became this visual. And I'm just, oh gosh, this is exactly what white supremacy wants. It wants us infighting. It wants us to us versus them, because if we ourselves are fracturing ourselves, even intercommunally, right? Think about the queer community, for instance. We'll never build a strong enough coalition to dismantle an ideology that's existed for centuries.
Yeah. And even though it's existed for a long time, it's still made up. Race is made up. Race is a sociological construction that was specifically made to support capitalism.
Yeah.
Right. It was specifically made to categorize people based on skin tone.
And now it's categorizing voting representation.
Based on visual. It is imaginary and yet and still has very real impact.
Absolutely. Right? Colorism in the Latino community is ridiculous.
And I'm specific. I want to specifically highlight saying race, right? And I'm not saying ethnicity. I'm not saying culture. But I'm talking about the concept of race as an idea. You know, has real impact, but it is still very much constructed and not real. It's not based in science. Right. At all. Not in science in the way that we conceptualize like synthesizing our world through matter, right? Like it's not.
It's something because I always think about whenever I have to do like some kind of census report or some kind of thing where they ask for my shit. My bad, real life. You see, I forgot to turn my alarms off. Oops. But there was this thing where I'm just like, because in those kind of census reports, they'll ask you what is your ethnicity. So you'll check off Latino, Hispanic, and then they ask me for my race. And then you look at the options. I'm just like, well, I'm a mix of things.
When in reality, there should be a lot more categories under ethnicity. Right.
Or,
and
like,
less
or
even,
race. or just saying mixed race or whatever, right? And so for me, the struggle has always been, it has come up more, maybe this is on top of my mind and my heart because of what happened this past weekend, where it's like we were in a mixed group of, it was a mixed race group. It was 2 Black men, me and a white woman. And the one Black man who said that to me, he had said it as a way to be derogatory. Like he had said it as if I was less than or like wasn't really a person of color in his eyes, right? In my own home, which I thought was funny. And so without even prompting me to say, I didn't say anything. I just I'm like rolling my eyes. And my other friend next to me, who's also a Black man, was like, no, that's not Mark. And even if you thought Mark was white, he doesn't engage or walk through the world in that way.
Right. Because when we're talking about upholding white supremacist ideology, we're talking about a thought. We're talking about
anyone can do that.
We're talking about an idea, right? Any human person can embody and uphold
Black,
that,
brown,
regardless
Asian,
of the nature of their skin tone.
Exactly.
Right. And we know that. We've seen that, right? Like we experienced that.
Yeah. I mean, there's Candace Owens. I mean,
like
Clarence Thomas, right? Right. There's a lot of anti-Blackness in the Latinx community, right?
Which is so ironic to me because the transatlantic slave trade put us everywhere. Put Blackness, put African folks everywhere. Right. And what I found, what I was meaning to talk to you about this is in my Ifa book that I'm almost done with. One of the things that she talks about is the adaptation of Ifa across the diaspora. Right. And one of the ways that it has come up in culture around food was in Puerto Rico, she mentions, is mofongo. Mofongo is a deeply rooted African dish.
A lot of Taino culture, a lot of African culture is embedded in the Puerto Rican experience. Everywhere. Yeah, I'm talking about
but
in
definitely
Puerto Rico,
like Puerto
right?
Rican
and that's why, and I always say, there's whatever. But that's why for me, going back to Puerto Rico was such a spiritual experience too, because I felt like I was connecting to my ancestry, and you saw me. Every occasion, I was like, at some point, I had cried tears. It was like one dish reminded me of my titi Edba. I haven't seen in a while. I just remember it was so good. And you think about all the ways, and I think, I think about how I was raised in a bicultural household. Like my stepdad, my mom was dating at the time, was a Black man from the South. He didn't let us speak Spanish in the house. So you ask me, why do you understand it but can't speak it? Well, because I was forbidden from speaking it and learning it. During my formative years, the language was easiest for me to retain. And it came from a Black man's directive not to speak in the home. Right? And this man was probably your hue, maybe a little lighter than you. And in many ways, he was the only father figure I had that helped me understand the importance of discipline and what it meant to be. But he also told me negative things too, right? Because there's a lot of nuance. There's both and, right? There's nuance. And so I want to jump into our next question because I know we're almost at time, and I want to speak a little bit more about the friendship aspect of our of our lives. And that question is so much of our friends, as I talked about earlier, intersects with our professional life. You are my yoga and movement teacher. We talked about that. You do all my photography. You're one of the speakers I represent. I always tell people I don't want kids, y'all. I don't want kids. I'm gonna be the forever uncle. And I said, but if I ever had a son by accident, if I got a trans man pregnant, whatever, well, should we keep them the podcast? I'm gonna keep on the podcast, whatever. But if sorry, that was my intrusive thought coming young, because I'm with my friend and we're just having a real conversation.
No shade.
No shade. But yes. And so, oh God, okay. Authenticity, real need to that one. Real need that one right there. Okay. No, we can do that in. I don't want kids, but if I ever had a son, I would want him to embody the kind of manhood that you do. And that if I ever got married, which at this point, who knows? You'll be my best man. I told you that. I believe more than ever we need each other. Communities don't know we're going to survive this. Why do you think we've been able to build this kind of relationship that allows for it to mesh between the personal and the professional parts of our lives? Hold on, posture. If you got too comfortable. Wait, you're out of the frame. Okay.
Actually embracing time. And actually like taking our time.
Yeah.
And not rushing anything.
Yeah.
It's also the act of showing up, right? Accepting invitations, right? To hang out, to do things.
Even when it's inconvenient.
And I'm so glad you brought up that word. Yeah. I do not believe that true friendship is inconvenient.
Yeah.
It may be challenging in some senses, right? Like, at the crux of all loving relationships, they should push you to grow.
Yeah.
Right.
He's pushing me all the time, y'all. He be pushing me.
And there may be things you may otherwise like do for a friend that you wouldn't do for someone else, or for another friend or something like that. But like this concept of friendship being inconvenient is something that feels so antithesis to actual friendship, and especially friendship that is supposed to be a relationship of love.
Yeah, reciprocity, trust.
Yes, the act of nurturing one's spirit, or the spirit of another.
The act of being loving too.
Yeah, like that's so.
Yeah, I don't find most of my friends inconvenient. By the way, most of my friends, I would say, because you know this, I have gone through some iterations of my friend groups and moving to Atlanta, and you were always that constant. And even when we had disagreements, or even when we had moments that were, and there weren't many, I can't think anyways, that rose to the level of we need to talk about this.
Yeah.
I never ever doubted or questioned if our love would endure, if we would be able to get through something. Whereas other people, and I've done this to the people, I'm not innocent of this either. I'm not absolved from this behavior. When things get hard, the first inclination is to throw you away.
Yeah, to throw the relationship on the table, which you
and I know,
which is philosophically a thing that I don't do.
Yeah, right. And I don't do that. I try not to do that. I've done that in the past. I may have created distance.
And I'm talking about like,
but in my mature self,
throwing the relationship on the table out of anger, right, or annoyance, or inconvenience, or whatever, right? Like with no discussion, like with no interrogation. To identify what of this is mine to carry and unpack, and what of this is for us to discuss.
And also, where is grace in that space?
Yeah. Those are acts of love, right? And so,
I know I've been trying to think about that too, because I've been going through this season of really having to deprioritize people.
Yeah, because not everybody is your friend. Not everybody is meant to be your friend. Not everybody is meant to occupy.
Some people are meant to be associates. Some people are meant to be
like we can
temporary.
Yeah, you can have associates. You can have acquaintances, right? You can have people that you're cool with, people that you just fuck with, right? That's it's all good, right? But like
your party friend, your associate.
There's an essential difference between all of that and a friend. Yeah. Right.
And also, I think not every friend becomes family.
True.
Right. But you have become that for me. And I think, and it was actually our trip together to Puerto Rico that solidified that. Because they say group trips can make or break a friendship.
Living together will make or break a friendship.
Yeah.
Too. But trips are
well, luckily
more low.
We never have to worry about that.
Because trips together are low hanging fruit version of figuring out if it's gonna work.
It's gonna work
or not.
Well, because I think it really, and I think because the intention I had for that trip, it aligned with the people I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't go with my party friends. I went with my nerdy, more introverted friends who would enjoy talking about philosophical things and who won't get offended if me and Rig are co-working or working on something while y'all are just playing your video games or just shit to shit. I didn't work that trip, thank goodness, but Rig had to, right? And so it was a really natural trip for me, and it really solidified. It really solidified that I have this anchored community of family here, because I am the only one in my family who has moved away multiple times, and I'm never going back to New Jersey. But it really solidified that for me. And then the pour-in activity. So for my birthday party this year, I borrowed my friend Amber Cabral's pour-in, and Daniel was one of the people who spoke. And I was like, I know he's more introverted. He's Daniel's not a man of many words, by the way. Even though he's a great speaker and facilitator, you should book him. To clarify, but he's not. He's someone who shows his love through acts of service, like through quality time. Like you'll show up, you'll fix things in the house, you'll yell at me for asking someone else to fix it, they fuck it up. You'll throw out the trash, whatever, right? All those kind of things. But you're not a man of many words.
And what I'm trying to do is trying to align speaking with an act, thinking of that as an act.
It is.
Right?
Because words of affirmation to me is an act of service.
Yeah.
Like it is an action.
Mm-hmm.
Like today I did some of that through writing some of my friends who gave my spirit.
Yeah.
And every day I try to do that.
Saying the right thing, right? Like showing up in that way, like just a word of encouragement can be more than enough for some folks, and it's an act. Right?
Yeah, it is an act.
And I do it all the time.
Yeah.
It's just not like standing up in front of people like that all the time. But
it's different standing up. I think facilitating something and then standing up
very
about
different.
Friendship or feelings.
Yeah,
it's different. We're almost out of time, but I have to ask you because I ask every question of this guest. Well, first of all, thank you for being here. Thank you for being here. And there's so much we can talk more about that, about our friendship and all that. And also, it's like you also challenge me to be better. I think really at the core of any good friendship, and then vice versa. I feel like I'm constantly challenging you with the marketing stuff of your business. From a bit like, let me tell you, I tell this man all the time, what are you waiting for? What's going on?
No, I'm doing better.
You are doing better, yes. He's not there all the way yet, but he is doing so much better.
Yeah.
Right? And I just remember thinking to myself, it's like, oh, we can work well together and it doesn't ruin the friendship? I think about the Demi Lovato song, ruin the friendship. I don't want to ruin the friendship. You know what I'm saying? Because I tell all my friends who I represent. My one friend got fired the other day. But I tell all my friends, the moment the work thing infringes on the life friend thing, we're terminating the contract.
Yeah.
I don't care what balance is. I don't care what the money loss is. I don't care. Because money and business will never be more important to me than our friendship.
Than community.
Yeah, than my community. Right. At the end of the day, yes, we both love what we do, and I love being able to be your agent and your coach and your supporter and your encourager and all those things. But that's secondary to being your friend.
Yeah.
Right, your chosen family. That's a different level. So yeah.
So the one thing I need to challenge, and there is one thing that you brought up that I do want to challenge you to do moving forward, is to think about your life moving forward in the same way you thought about the trip. How do you want your life to be? What is it? What is the energy and the infrastructure, the nature of your life?
Yeah.
What is it that you want it to be?
Yeah.
And who aligns with that? In the same way that you had specific intentions around this trip.
Yeah.
And it was about the people that went with you, that aligned with that intention.
Yeah.
Think about that in a greater sense, around your life. Yeah. And who actually who aligns with that. And some people
who has access, who has proximity.
And some people are going to fall right into place without you even having to do anything. Yeah, and that's ideal, right? And then there's also going to be people that pop up in your head around this is somebody that I would want to bring in, given the intention that I'm setting for my life moving forward. Yeah, and I think that's already starting to happen. I think the birthday party was also another good example of that. Bringing certain people in, letting certain people fall out to the wayside, and all that, because... And don't fight it. Yeah, I know. I have a thing about abandonment because I was abandoned. And I don't have a father and all these things. I don't have a relationship with my father. And so I have this thing around
abandoning people. And I'm realizing that setting boundaries doesn't mean I'm trying to abandon someone.
Right.
Or someone losing proximity to me or access to my home doesn't mean I'm abandoning them. It means that they have done something despite constant conversations and trying to extend grace. Because grace can only go so far.
Yeah.
Right? Because if that grace isn't met with your changed behavior or effort to improve, then it's just insanity. It's me thinking that you're actually listening to me, meanwhile you're just placating me and the behavior persists, right? Because then that's not healthy either. Right? And so I have to choose, I have to decide, am I abandoning them by setting these boundaries and cutting off proximity, or am I abandoning myself by not doing those things?
Right.
And I realize that I can't abandon them.
Right.
Even if they perceive me choosing me as abandoning them, that's for them to sort out and figure out. That's not for me to sort out. Yeah. So thanks for that. I'm working on it. All right, y'all. Last question, because we're almost at time. I wonder how the clip are going to come out when we do the magic clips. I've never done that with next week, so we'll see. Anyway, sorry. Think ahead. This is a question I ask every guest. What do you hope to shift in society through your work?
I hope to shift people's perception of themselves and thus the world around them, right? Through how they see their bodies, right? Through the things that they think about, the internal dialogue, in how you self-conceptualize, and how they feel, right, in moving, right? How they feel moving through the world.
Yeah. And say that thing that you say about Clear Pathworks. I love that line around.
My tagline?
Yes.
A clear path works when you work to clear your path.
Yeah. Because it takes work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It takes intent. It takes effort.
Yeah. Yeah. It's energy, so it's a force to move things, to become unbound.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it also takes rest.
Yeah.
Right? Work and rest are in tandem.
Yeah.
They are aligned, very much so.
Yeah. I'm working on learning how to get better rest. But here we are. Thank you.
Of course.
Thank you for being a guest. Thank you for being my friend, most importantly. And thank you for being you. I know many people all over the world, but no one quite like you.
I hope not. I do my best.
Yes. Unique is what you are. Be sure to check out Daniel's work. I will add all his social media to the show notes. Check out his website, clearpathworks.com, where you can learn more about his services in the Unbound movement section, the Soul-Lit section, of course, his black sign. No, it's black. So the article that I read said it's like sign, but with a V.
So vine.
Not sign, but vine.
Okay,
I misunderstood that as in it's pronounced like sign, but with a V. So black vine.
Yeah.
Okay, I was right. Okay. So the article confused me. Okay.
No, you.
Black Vine is his photography arm of his business. Be sure to check out more information on Pops, which will be coming out soon. He and I are working on something around that project in the coming weeks and months. So be sure to support that work when it comes out. Follow his Instagram. Do you have a newsletter? Oh, yeah, he has a newsletter for us for speaking. Yeah. So we'll add that to the show notes as well and all the things. You can collect them on Instagram. All that will be on the show notes. But until next time, take care of yourself. Take care of each other. We're in this together. Right? It's a yes and, not a no or. And be well. We didn't plan that. That's so annoying. Bye.